Right now, somewhere beneath the Pacific Ocean, 135 men are living inside a steel tube the diameter of a school bus. They have not seen sunlight in 47 days. They have not breathed unfiltered air in 7 weeks. They do not know exactly where they are because their navigation system uses no GPS. No satellite signal reaches them. No radio, no internet. No phone call home. They are running silent, running deep, and running a $4 billion nuclear-powered machine that the United States government will not officially confirm even exists in a specific location. This is life aboard a U.S. Navy nuclear submarine, and it is nothing like what you have seen in the movies. The Hollywood version shows torpedo rooms, dramatic countdowns, and heroic captains. The reality is 135 human beings eating, sleeping, working, and psychologically surviving inside a sealed metal cylinder for months at a time in complete isolation from the world above. The air they breathe is manufactured. The water they drink is made from the ocean around them. And the only thing separating them from 2,000 feet of crushing black water is a pressure hull measured in inches. Today we go inside, deck by deck, system by system, person by person. Because the men who operate these machines are among the most highly trained, most psychologically resilient, and least recognized warriors in American military history. And what they live through every single deployment will change how you think about the word sacrifice. Before we talk about the people, you need to understand what they are operating. A Virginia-class fast attack submarine is 377 feet long. It displaces 7,900 tons when submerged. It costs approximately $3.4 billion to build. Each one takes roughly 7 years to construct at the Newport News shipbuilding facility in Virginia, where thousands of engineers and welders spend years assembling a vessel that must withstand pressures capable of crushing an unprotected human body in milliseconds. The power source is a single S9G nuclear reactor. This reactor generates enough thermal energy to power the entire propulsion system, all ship systems, all life support, all weapons electronics, and every light, computer, and kitchen appliance on board for the entire deployment without a single drop of conventional fuel. The reactor does not need refueling for the entire service life of the submarine. That is 25 to 33 years of operation on a single nuclear core. The practical implication of this is extraordinary. The submarine does not need to surface for fuel. It does not need to surface for air because the life support system manufactures oxygen from seawater through electrolysis. It does not need to surface for water because the desalination system produces fresh drinking water continuously from the ocean outside the hull. The only reason a nuclear submarine must eventually return to port is food. And the Navy loads enough provisions to sustain 135 people for approximately 90 days before that becomes necessary. The Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines, the larger cousins of the Virginia-class, carry enough food for 70 days and enough nuclear warheads to end entire civilizations. Those submarines cost $2 billion each. There are 14 of them on patrol at any given moment. The United States does not confirm their locations, ever. Here is something the Navy does not publicize. The exact test depth of a Virginia-class submarine is classified. What is publicly known is that it exceeds 800 feet. What that means in physical terms. At 800 feet of depth, the water pressure on the hull reaches approximately 356 pounds per square inch. Every square inch of that submarine's exterior surface is being compressed by 356 pounds of force. The total pressure load on the entire hull is measured in millions of tons. The steel used in the pressure hull is HY80 and HY100 high-yield steel, specially formulated to flex under pressure rather than crack. Every weld is X-rayed. Every joint is tested. Every penetration through the hull, and there are hundreds, for cables, pipes, torpedo tubes, and sensor arrays, is sealed to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. If a single seal fails at depth, the result is not a slow leak. It is instantaneous catastrophic flooding. The water enters at pressure so extreme that it destroys everything in its path before the crew can respond. This is not a theoretical risk. USS Thresher sank in 1963 at a depth of approximately 1,400 feet. All 129 men aboard were lost. The investigation revealed a piping system failure in the engine room. Water at that pressure does not flow, it detonates. The crew of every submarine that has sailed since 1963 knows this history. They live with it. They train against it, and they go to sea anyway. Now let's talk about where 135 people actually live inside this machine. Because the space allocation will genuinely shock you. A Virginia-class submarine has a pressure hull diameter of approximately 34 feet. Inside that cylinder, you must fit the reactor compartment, the engine room, the torpedo room, the control room, the sonar room, the communications spaces, the weapons handling areas, the galley, the mess, the medical bay, and the sleeping quarters for 135 human beings. What is left for sleeping, after all the mission-critical systems take their share, amounts to roughly the floor space of a modest 3-bedroom house, divided among 135 people. Sailors sleep in racks, narrow bunks stacked 3 high, similar in dimension to the carrier racks we have covered before. But on a submarine, space is so constrained that many junior enlisted sailors participate in what the Navy calls hot racking. One sailor sleeps in the rack. When his shift starts, he gets up, and another sailor, just coming off his own shift, climbs into the same bunk. The sheets are still warm. The mattress still holds the shape of the previous occupant. You are sleeping in a bed that has not been empty in weeks. You are sharing it with someone you may barely know, on a rotation so tight that the rack never fully cools. This is not a temporary emergency measure. This is standard operational procedure on fast attack submarines during deployment. Your personal space, everything you own for 90 days, fits in a small lockable bin beneath your mattress. One bin, no window, no natural light, no concept of whether it is day or night outside, because 400 feet below the surface, those categories stop meaning anything. Every breath taken aboard a nuclear submarine is manufactured. The oxygen generation system, called ESGN, the electrolytic oxygen generator, splits seawater molecules using electrical current from the reactor. The hydrogen produced is vented overboard. The oxygen is pumped into the atmosphere of the submarine. The carbon dioxide exhaled by 135 people is continuously scrubbed from the air by a chemical absorption system using monoethanolamine. The entire atmospheric composition of the submarine oxygen percentage, CO2 levels, humidity, trace contaminants, is monitored around the clock by the Atmosphere Control Watch. If the CO2 scrubber malfunctions, the crew has approximately 4 to 6 hours before CO2 levels reach dangerous concentrations. At that point, cognitive function degrades. Decision-making becomes impaired, physical performance drops, and the crew is operating a nuclear-armed vessel at depth in an environment where every decision must be precise. This is why atmosphere control is not a secondary duty assigned to a junior sailor between other tasks. It is a dedicated watch station, manned continuously, because the air is not free, the air is engineered. And if the engineering fails, everything fails. Here's a question we want you to answer in the comments. You are 60 days into a 90-day deployment. You have not seen sunlight, you have not had a private moment in 2 months. You are sleeping in a bed that someone else just vacated. The air around you is manufactured. The water you drink came from the ocean outside the hull. And you cannot call home, not because the signal is bad, but because transmitting any signal would reveal your position to every adversary listening. Could you maintain your mental discipline? Your focus? Your professionalism? Because the Navy does not take chances on this question. Every submarine candidate undergoes extensive psychological screening before being accepted into the submarine force. The washout rate is significant. The Navy is not looking for bravado. It is looking for people who can function at a high level, under extreme pressure, in complete isolation for months. That is a specific psychological profile. And not everyone has it. On a nuclear submarine, food is not just nutrition. It is the primary morale mechanism. The only scheduled event that breaks the rhythm of watch rotations, maintenance cycles, and tactical drills. The submarine loads approximately 15,000 pounds of provisions before departure. Fresh food, vegetables, fruit, dairy, fresh meat dominates the first 2 to 3 weeks. The crew eats well in the early phase of deployment. Then the fresh food runs out and the transition happens. Frozen protein, canned vegetables, powdered dairy, the menu narrows. The variety shrinks. By week 6 of a 90-day patrol, some sailors report that what they look forward to most, more than anything else, is a specific meal, not a gourmet meal. Just a specific combination of flavors that reminds them of something from home. The galley on a fast attack submarine is roughly the size of a residential kitchen. 2 cooks called culinary specialists prepare 3 meals per day, plus mid-rats for the watch sections. They serve 135 people in a space designed for perhaps 10. The mess deck seats 12 people at a time. Sailors eat in shifts. The cooks work hours that would break most civilian kitchen workers. And they do it knowing that the quality of what comes out of that galley directly impacts the psychological state of 135 people who have nothing else to look forward to. The Navy knows this. which is why submarine cooks are among the most carefully selected culinary specialists in the fleet. A bad cook on a nuclear submarine is not an inconvenience, it is a morale crisis. Here is the detail that most civilians find hardest to process. A nuclear submarine operating at depth has no GPS. GPS signals do not penetrate seawater at operational depths. The submarine cannot receive satellite navigation data while submerged. So how does a vessel traveling at speeds up to 25 knots through pitch-black water with no visual reference, no GPS, and no external navigation aid know exactly where it is? The answer is inertial navigation. The submarine carries a ship's inertial navigation system, SINS, that tracks every movement, every acceleration, every change in direction since the last known surface fix. Using gyroscopes and accelerometers, SINS calculates the submarine's current position by dead reckoning from that last known point. The mathematics are performed continuously by onboard computers. The accumulated error in a modern inertial navigation system is measured in hundreds of meters over days of travel. Remarkable precision for a system that operates with zero external input. This is supplemented by passive sonar, listening to the acoustic environment of the ocean to build a picture of surrounding geography and traffic. The sonar operators are some of the most highly trained acoustic analysts in the world. They can identify specific ship classes by the unique acoustic signature of their propellers and machinery. They can track multiple contacts simultaneously. They work in a darkened room, wearing headsets, listening to the ocean, building a mental map of a three-dimensional environment they cannot see. This is how the submarine knows where it is. This is how it avoids running into seamounts, other submarines, or surface shipping in total darkness, at depth, in silence. Every 2 years, the United States Navy conducts what it calls ICEX, Arctic Submarine Exercises, beneath the polar ice cap. Fast attack submarines transit to the Arctic Ocean and operate under ice coverage that can exceed 10 feet in thickness. The operational environment beneath Arctic ice is unlike anything else in naval warfare. The ice pack creates a false ceiling above the submarine. Surfacing normally, a straightforward procedure becomes a potentially catastrophic maneuver. Before surfacing, the submarine must identify a polynya, a natural opening in the ice, or locate a section thin enough to break through. Specialized under-ice sonar maps the ceiling above. Teams analyze ice thickness and structural consistency. If the assessment is wrong, if the ice is thicker than estimated, or if it has internal fracture points that cause it to collapse rather than part cleanly, the surfacing maneuver can damage the submarine's sail, destroy the periscope, or in extreme cases, cause flooding through topside fittings that are not designed to absorb impact loads. The crew trains extensively for this, but training in a pool or a simulator does not fully replicate the experience of ascending toward 10 feet of Arctic ice in a $3.4 billion submarine with 135 people aboard. Once surfaced in the Arctic, crew members exit the submarine onto the ice pack. They set up temporary camps. They conduct maintenance that cannot be performed internally. They train for cold weather survival. And then they go back down. Back into the tube. Back into the manufactured air and the hot racks and the recycled water. Back into silence. Here is your second question. These sailors cannot call home, cannot send email, cannot receive news from the outside world. A family member could be in the hospital. A child could be born. A parent could die. And the sailor 400 feet below the surface of the Pacific would not know. Would not know for weeks. Until the submarine surfaces and the communications blackout ends. Could you serve knowing that? Could you go 90 days completely cut off from everyone you love in a steel tube, not knowing what is happening above? Tell us in the comments. Because the men who do this will tell you the hardest part is not the physical confinement. The hardest part is the silence, the not knowing. The moment the submarine surfaces and the communication system comes back online, that moment for these sailors is more significant than any combat event of the entire deployment. The United States Navy operates 68 submarines. 14 are Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines, each carrying up to 20 Trident 2D. 5 missiles, each missile capable of carrying multiple independently targeted nuclear warheads. Those 14 submarines represent the most destructive capability ever assembled by human civilization. They are on patrol right now, silent, invisible, undetectable. The other 54 are fast attack submarines, Virginia-class, Los Angeles-class, Seawolf-class, hunting enemy submarines, gathering intelligence, delivering special operations forces, and holding adversary surface fleets at risk across every ocean on Earth. Every one of those submarines has between 130 and 155 human beings living inside it, right now. Breathing manufactured air. drinking desalinated water, sleeping in hot racks, eating canned food, not knowing what is happening at home, not knowing what day it feels like on the surface. The pilots of carrier aviation get the headlines. The SEALs get the movies. The submariners get nothing. No footage, no interviews, no public acknowledgement of specific operations. That is by design. Their power comes from invisibility. The moment the world knows where they are is the moment they become less effective. So they stay silent, they stay deep, they stay invisible. And they carry the most consequential military capability in human history on their shoulders. 135 people at a time, 90 days at a stretch, in a steel tube that costs $3.4 billion and fits inside a single city block. The next time you hear about nuclear deterrence, about why major powers do not launch first strikes against the United States, understand that the reason, the actual physical reason, is those 68 submarines and the men inside them. They are the guarantee. They are the reason the math of aggression against America never works. And they are doing it right now, anonymously, silently, without recognition and without complaint. If this video gave you a new understanding of what these sailors carry, hit that like button. Subscribe so you never miss what we cover next, and drop a comment. Tell us what surprised you most about life inside a nuclear submarine. We read every single one. See you in the next video.